Hi everyone, my name is Vlad Craciun. I'm working for Bitdefender since 2009 and I got to handle the clean of ransomwares for about 2 years now. Together, in the next half an hour, we're going to surf a bit these threats and we're going to see what they're up to. I'll try to introduce a bit what happened in 2017 with these threats. And we're going to see how they got to build an entire business built on top of cryptocurrency. We're also going to see what mistakes are users usually doing, and also ransomwares, they have their own mistakes. And we're going to draw some conclusions in the end. So 2017 was a prolific year for ransomware. We got about 150 different families. At an average rate of about 12 different families per month, and these numbers do not include their subversions, so there are actually more. And we can actually clean at the moment about 10% of all of them. We have here a couple of the most widespread families. Those highlighted in black just can't be recovered, but are common at the moment and widespread. Those highlighted in green can be recovered, and at the moment we have some decrypto tools for them. At least for some of their subversions, because they got to update in the meanwhile. The one in blue, Satan ransomware, is known for its strong ransomware as a service interface and its choice for a lot of anti-analysis tricks. In fact, this ransomware has more anti-analysis tricks than all others together. The families in orange have chosen to change the strategy for lateral movement, and since the beginning of 2017, we're seeing this widespread more on companies and not on common users, and they are I believe that they are spread by hand by their owners after they got to brute force some user accounts through RDP protocol. And we have another couple highlighted in red. Those ones got public attentions and our attention in a special way. Starting with Wannacry, they include SMB exploits like Eternal Blue or Eternal Romance. In fact, they kind of inspired one another, starting with Wannacry, and Bad Rabbit, for instance, is also inspired by its predecessors, which use disk encryption, like Not-Petya, also called Petrop, and GoldenEye and Petya in the first place. Okay, so let's see how this business built up on cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency developed at the same time with this kind of threats. Everything started with some kind of bad jokes, and between 2012 and 2014, we've seen these screen lockers, which are the roots of the ransomwares. This is an example of a screen locker with a message not well formed. So at the time when this message come up on a common user, he didn't know if he need to cry or to laugh, because if you have some basic skills of how things works, you can easily bypass this kind of windows. This is another example of screen locker. We called it IcePol, but in fact it's Polis split it at the half and reversed. Because of the fake messages, it's more like a scareware, which had something different than the others. It delivered the ransom note in the target user's language by checking their location, looking on their IP. And it's one of those who preferred UCash and PaySafeCard for the payments, because this is not because cryptocurrency, bitcoins did not exist at that time, but because they were not so popular. So I believe these guys did not know about this kind of monetizing at that time. Okay, we have here another example this is both a screen locker and a crypto locker at the same time. We called it ACCDF ISA. In fact, it's not us who gave it this name. It appeared around 2015, and the guys behind this felt an urge to tell their affected users, the victims, how things work, because they had a lot of troubles with other affected users in previous versions, and somehow in these subversions they pushed an entire post on the ransom note, and we see at the top right corner the small scroll bar, so you have to read a bit, just like reading an end user license agreement. And this urge for the bad guys to talk to their victims and let them know how things work, we're seeing it still today. This is a series of 4 screenshots taken from Bleeping Computer. The red link at top right, I believe it's still working if you want to read the entire stream. It's about a guy who got affected by Gan Crab ransomware in March. The second version, we created a decryptor for the first version, and somehow one of the bad guys behind this ransomware peers in and tells him there is no way he can decrypt his file, he must pay the ransom. And while exchanging some data, in fact, the bad guy finds out, I don't know if it's visible at the bottom, the bad guy finds out from the user information structure sent while ransomware gets executed on affected user systems that his PC name contains IT right in the beginning. So he knows that the victim is some kind of network administrator and raises the fees and says he has to pay about $800, while we didn't see users to pay more than $500 without being special cases. Anyway, in the end, the user knows that he's one of the bad guys, and the bad guys admits it. Okay. So, since the fall of 2016, when after the third big key leak for Crysis ransomware, when we thought that they just ended their campaign, we've seen in the spring of 2017 that they actually took a break to make some changes, and this time they did not deliver the ransomware to common people, but to companies. And all the cases we have since then are just companies being infected with such kind of ransomwares. And after they did that, a lot of ransomwares borrowed this strategy, and others like GlobeImposter and BTCWare also spread at the moment like this, because they know that a company will pay this ransom and the user can easily choose not to pay. So we have on the left side the common users, which will most of them, I believe, will refuse to pay the ransom. They will get through with this at some point. And I also believe that most of them just don't afford to pay the ransom. And on the right side, we have companies which are forced somehow to pay this ransom if they don't have backups, because they will get to pay more to users after telling them that they just lost their data. And lately, we also seen some agreements between these ransomwares and coin miners or botnets. And we have here a botnet which got to infect an entire network. And some of these botnets have some mechanisms to exfiltrate sensitive user data. And this is a screenshot taken. Corebot and Emotet, for instance, can do such things. Getting screenshots from time to time and analyzing them. For example, here we have a screenshot from a billing application. It's clear that not every user will use a billing application. You have to have some clients for this. And they say, hey, we got a company. We can do something about it if others are interested. And the guys behind ransomwares are first to sign up for this type of delivery because in the end, they make a deal and the botnet infrastructures only becomes a way to deliver a package, just like a courier. And the company just get infected with a ransomware. That way, the ransomware owner will have will be sure that they will pay the ransom. Okay, so since 2015, I guess, starting with CryptoLocker, but more since the beginning of the last year, we've seen an interest increased for ransomware as a services. This is some kind of noise level. I mean, that at least that's the way I want to call it, because somehow ransomware creators got to bring some noise between them and the affected clients. And if someone will try to track back the entire operation, will eventually get an user of this service and not the creator of the ransomware. So you will have a hard time getting your hands on the ransomware creator, but you will get at some point to know who delivered the package, because the ransomware user IDs found in binaries are linked with their cryptocurrency accounts and other type of information which they have. And this is some kind of business which ransomware owners are making up in order to be motivated like in the position of a ransomware user, as a ransomware as a service user, they got a big percent of all the income, about 70%, and the hacker, the owner of the ransomware, only gets a small fee, about 30%. It's a range. Not every ransomware has the same percent, so it ranges between 10 and 30%. This is an example of the ransomware as a service for Satan ransomware, a screenshot taken from the dark web. The page ends with onion, so you need Tor to access this kind of pages. They say clear here. I don't know if it's visible, but I can share this if required. They tell how things work if you roll in as a ransomware as a service user, and you just need to sign up for this. You don't have to have a PC on your own. You don't have to have money to invest. You don't have to have nothing. You just need to sign up, and you just get 70% of all the income. This is suspect. I don't know. No one asks, why do I get 70% just like that? But I believe this is this noise level which hides basically the ransomware creators and keeps them at a safe place. There are some mistakes which users usually make while contacting this kind of threats. And this kind of mistakes made by users also affects company for which they work. And everything is based on what we call social engineering, basically. It's an exaggerated curiosity and maybe sometimes a lack of focus when surfing the internet. Also, most of users don't use credentials at all, or they have weak ones. This is a gateway for those who are trying to brute force these accounts. Also, some companies which are in their beginnings maybe don't afford to hire someone to take care of the network infrastructure, and they believe that they can deal with it on their own. And not having someone with experience to face these kind of situations, you just end up hacked, or you get your network penetrated by this kind of threats, and you just don't know what happened or how to deal with this kind of things. There are also users which have some contradictory behaviors. So they install some security solutions, and at the same time, they believe that they can use cracked applications, download torrents, disable operating system updates, and so on. Just believing that that's okay, my security product will protect. Well, things are not quite that. What would you click if you got this pop-up on your web browser surfing on a usual day, the internet? I believe that most of the people just want to live by chance, by good luck and bad luck. They don't want to face with basics of logic, with what follows based on what I'm doing now. So maybe they can believe that you can win something without playing. I don't know. I don't think that's the way things works. And I have a couple of hints for users which got affected by this kind of threats, and both for companies. Actually, this list is very large, but this is only some, I'm only highlighting some start points. So users need to be more aware of what they're doing and to base their facts more on logic than on chance. And you need to not click anything you see on your website, no matter what it says. You need to update your operating system as frequently as possible, and also your applications like Flash Player or Java if you're using this kind of applications. Also, credentials are a must for each of us. Even if is it only you, the one who uses the computer. If you're connected to internet, you can't be just you. It's an entire community, and you're available for others and visible at the same time. For companies, I suggest strong firewall rules. Also, custom administrative policies. For instance, if you have a terminal server with endpoints, maybe you want to know if your security service appliance at an endpoint is malfunction. And maybe in this case, you want to isolate that system, no matter if your productivity lowers for a short amount of time. Ransomwares also have their mistakes, and I'm going to highlight two of them. One of them appeared in June last year in Not-Petya or Petrop. Some might say that they intended to do so, but if this was by intention to damage the user data, then they would have continued with this kind of threat. But that was not the case. They did not correlate well the user IDs with what actually happened on encryption. Another case is GunCrab, appeared in January, in mid-January this year. And this ransomware affected only files larger than 4 gigabytes because they did not read well the Microsoft documentation for an API. So it's at the bottom right, it says it's it's something taken from the Microsoft site, which tells that you have to use some parameters in the set file pointer function, both set to some values when doing operation on files larger than 2 gigabytes because the parameters are signed. And they did not listen or did not read this at all, and they're only increasing the file pointers because they're doing read-write operation and encryption on the same file. They're only increasing file pointers by what read and write functions are increasing. And the operations are taking place on 1 megabyte blocks, and they're reading after 4 gigabytes 1 megabyte, and they're encrypting and writing it on the second megabyte. So you're losing that data. And this process continues, and you're losing the odd chunks of 1 megabyte. It's kind of a redundant information. When we created the tool for decryption and restored the data, we found out that user had on his larger files, this kind of information 2 times. One time not encrypted, and right after encrypted. So the odd chunks were lost for good. Further, we're trying to see some kind of templates where this encryption is moving around these threads, and we're trying to see how we try to identify these threads. So one of these templates is based on creating a random key, uploading it to a server. If this operation is successful, then start the encryption. This one of these ransomware is Kriak, and at the left bottom corner we have a graphical user interface for this threat. Another type of template is downloading a key and applying it at the encryption, and we've seen this on Lockcrypt ransomware. This is how encryption works on Wannacry, and this third template is based on RSA keys, and Wannacry had 3 layers of encryption, and the 3 layers, or first one, a pair of keys used to encrypt a few files, so user can test decryption and see that it really works. And a second layer is a public key shipped with the malware, and it is used to encrypt another third key generated locally. The private key is actually encrypted, and the public key is used to encrypt all the files. So if you want to decrypt your files, the application will upload the private C encrypted key, will decrypt it on the malware server, and you will get back your private decrypted key. Another template is using this kind of brute force, where hackers try to penetrate systems for weeks or months, and they don't hurry, and they eventually get some granted access when they manually deploy and bring down security products. And the final one is more a consequence and not a specific type, is based more on lack of knowledge of new ransomware creators and their hurry to bring their binaries to their user. This is a nemcode ransomware, which we got to decrypt by analyzing only the encrypted data. We see here a repeating key, which was used to encrypt only the first kilobytes of the file. This is a page online available for identifying ransomwares. You basically will upload a ransom note or an encrypted file. We also have our tool, the ransom recognition tool, where you must provide the ransom note and possible an encrypted file, and the application will give you some %. And if we have a decryption tool available, you'll see a blue link at the right side. These are 2 type of identifying these ransomwares. On the left, we have a ransom node from BTCWare, and at the bottom, we have a user ID, which is actually the encryption key encrypted with an RSA 1024 bits. At the right, we have a structure from a file encrypted by Crysis ransomware. We see the original file name in the middle in Unicode format, and there is a 6 letters lower, which identifies the subversion. Well, we further expect these ransomwares to increase, mainly because more and more users enroll in this ransomware as a service program. Also, new malware creators show up and try to express their knowledge by introducing new threats. And we're also seeing a trend in automating this kind of threats by increasing their productivity of binary deployment using, for instance, botnets, and also monetizing mechanisms. Thank you.
I think we have time for just one question.
Hey, great talk, summarizing all the kinds of ransomware. I just had a question about persistence of ransomwares. So what is the guarantee that after you've paid, the ransomware is out of your system? It's not hooked into any of your internal structures, and it's not sitting there to encrypt a file 6 months later on.
How does it persist?
Yeah, how do you ensure that after paying, you have removed your infection and it's not persisting on your system still?
If you don't have a security solution installed?
Maybe?
Well, ransomware creators don't remove their threats after infection, but more than 90% of them just delete themselves after encrypting the system. So I don't know if we can talk about persistence, because they just want your money and they got their job done. If you got encrypted the second time, you most probably don't get infected by the same ransomware.
Okay, so most of the ransomwares are not persistent?
Most of them not. They don't use persistence mechanism because they don't want to use you or extort you at maximum. They just want something small from you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there are any further questions, feel free to go and approach the speaker afterward. Let's thank our speaker again.